Yeah, we had a little thing on the camera. So what is we talked Friday. Wow, it's a third day already. Thursday we talked about love and relationships.
Relationships and in the Jungian context.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talked about success and how the mindset is really what makes us successful. And today we're talking about mind body wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's three things that we need to address. One, what is mind body
Mm-hmm.
from the Jungian perspective? The other one is how can the Jungian model address the mind body wellness
Mm-hmm.
question? And thirdly, it is kind of this new way of seeing wellness and the mind body.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a new paradigm, and maybe that we should start there.
Well, I wanted to also say that this is so important right now, wellness. Everyone's thinking about being well and healthy. But also people are not talking enough about stress and its effect on the body, and how stress is really, the number one cause of all illness, and the reason why people go to emergency rooms and have problems with their health is because of stress. And a lot of people use life coaching as a way to help them understand their stress as well. So let's talk about what is the mind body.
Well, let's start with the last one, which is kind of what is the paradigm.
Okay.
Because let's say if we approach the mind body from the Western paradigm of
Mm-hmm.
We're simply a biological machine and we're experiencing an external world,
Mm-hmm.
then the higher knowledge about the mind body doesn't really make sense, because we're still playing into the old paradigm, which says the body is something different than the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind, in Western psychology, let's say, there's no way to fit it in elegantly into the body.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say from the materialistic perspective, it appears that the mind is simply like this, they call it an epiphenomena,
Mm-hmm.
that it appears in the body, but we don't have a way to explain how it fits in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best Western science can do. It's called the hard problem of consciousness, which means that the way we understand biology from the Western perspective cannot account for why a material like nerve cells can become conscious and can create what we call the mind.
Mm.
So the consciousness paradigm, though, does account for that. It means that the way we experience the body, the way we experience the world, is arising from consciousness. And consciousness is the fundamental property of the universe. It comes from the East, but now even Western science is catching up.
Isn't that sort of this idea that they talk about the hard problem, which is does the brain create consciousness, or does consciousness create the brain and the material? And you're saying that the truth is that we are a conscious universe versus a material universe.
That's it.
And so when people think about health, they think about wellness. If you're approaching it from a materialistic standpoint, you're kind of working on like moving the external and forgetting about the mind. And isn't that what most the medical model is based on, is that the mind is just, the doctor never says, are you stressed, or are you doing this? Maybe for heart problems, but other than that, usually if someone has a cancer or something, they never say, have you been stressed? Maybe now they do it a little bit, but it's really more about, let's take these pieces of meat in our body and change it. Let's give it a drug. Let's give it medication.
Yeah, let's say they consider the physical body as the starting point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because from the materialistic perspective, what is real is essentially matter, what we can see and touch and measure. And so medicine, based on the materialistic perspective, starts from the fact that, or the point of view that if we cannot find it in the tissue as a
Mm-hmm.
physical reality, then it's secondary,
Mm.
right?
You can't measure
Stress,
it. You can't see it.
you can't measure, you can't really see it. So stress would be like a secondary thing to address.
Mm-hmm.
Chronic stress, we know it can damage the heart tissue,
Mm-hmm.
nerve tissue, because from the consciousness perspective, the thoughts that you have affect the body, affect the structure and function of the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it is mental phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't mean there aren't any laws, of course, because a lot of people might ask, well, can't we just then think ourselves into complete wellness?
Mm-hmm.
There are rules, as we know in biology, that give the world structure. And those rules are operating continuously. You cannot just bypass them. In some of the Eastern philosophy, it says you cannot bypass aging,
Mm-hmm.
right? That the passing of time will change the body
Mm-hmm.
and have its impact on it. You cannot change illness. There's always going to be some kind of mechanism that's going to be affecting the passage of time and the wellness of the body.
Mm.
And you cannot change the fact of death.
Mm.
That it
This is
simply
our miracle. Like you're going to look 20 years old forever. That's not really
right.
possible.
Right. So that's why we insist kind of taking the consciousness perspective, because if you say in some of the Upanishads, for example, they talk about immortality. If you read it from the materialistic perspective, then you're thinking, oh, does that mean my body's going to live forever?
Mm-hmm.
And no, it doesn't, because again, the body is appearing as part of the material universe, and so it's subject to the laws of the material universe. But
so as long as we have a body, we have to play by the rules of the material universe. But it doesn't mean that that's all there is, or what appears to be in a material universe.
That's it. Yes. So that's the basic shift in paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take that approach, then the implications for wellness are very different than, let's say, just exercise and just reduce your stress and
not eat sugar.
Eat well. Yeah. Now, all those things are important, of course. We're not saying get rid of those. But the fundamental approach to the mind body is different.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting with the mind, basically, than starting with the body. So, what does this mean, let's say, for our physical bodies?
Mm-hmm.
So in Eastern philosophy, in the Upanishads, and it's actually written down in the yoga school, Patanjali's yoga school, explains that there's several layers to our body. Instead of just kind of thinking of physiology and anatomy like we do in the West, it says no, the appearance of the body, the physical element, is called the outer sheath.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the one that we have contact with the external world. Mm-hmm. So it would be the anatomy of the body.
Mm-hmm.
The anatomy of the body, it says, is made up of food, which is interesting.
Because our body is it's just a big foodie thing.
Yeah, that's why we have to eat continuously to maintain the body, right? If we stop eating, it withers away and disappears, essentially, dissolves. And it's in the East, they did not know about let's say, the genetics, as far as we know. But now we understand that that's actually what's happening. The genetic code, when we digest something, it breaks it apart, and the genetic code then instructs the cells and the enzymes and the amino acids to take those properties of the food that we're eating and construct it into new cells, reconstruct the body continuously. So in a sense, they're right. Our bodies are made up of the stuff that we eat. So you are what you eat, in a sense, is true. That's why it's so important to eat fresh food, healthy food, because it's literally what is creating your body continuously.
And so what does this have to do with coaching? In a way, because we're not in Jungian coaching, we're not teaching people nutrition necessarily, but we do have people that are health coaches or have gone through that kind of training, but they need to understand the psychological impact of the body and the mind.
Yeah, so the other layers are where it comes in handy. So you have this physical sheath, which is like a covering. Inside of that, you have the energetic body, or they call it the subtle body. And it is essentially made out of prana. And prana simply means like the life force. It animates the cells and gives them life. It's almost the definition of a life, that if a cell moves and is doing something, it's alive. All our cells in our bodies are alive because they have that pranic energy. If you remove the energy from it, they're dead. Basically, they dissolve back into elemental properties. So our body is animated by this pranic force, and it's a different sheath. It's a different level of the body. Then when we get to the mind, beyond the pranic body, beyond the subtle body, we get to the mind body, which is what we used to dream. When we fall asleep and dream, we have a body, but it's not a physical body, obviously. Our physical body is asleep in the bed, but the mind body is active. We're experiencing things. We're living out different elements, different levels of the mind. So now we got three. We have the physical sheath, the pranic sheath, and the mind sheath. And the mind is the one that is constructing our reality. So now, if you understand these properties, now you can work with a person from the inside out.
Versus work out more, stick to your diet, don't eat these foods. What is going on in the mind?
Yes.
And that is really the cause of the dis-ease in the body.
That's right. And that understanding, let's say, helps us then help people in their relationship with food. Just like we talked about yesterday, we talked about how people have this relationship with money or this relationship with others. It's a relationship with the world.
Yeah, I think it's more than food. I think the food is just a symptom of what they eat. I think the relationship with the world, how do you feel in the world? Are you a tiny little ego that's trying to survive and clinging on to my boss is, a jerk, or they're going to lay me off, or I got laid off, I need another job, I can't make money, all those things about success. But and if someone's going to love me. They even talk about that in the mind body, that if you have a heartbreak, it's actually your body physically feels the pain. And so when we think about health coaching and wellness coaching, we need to understand the mind and also the psyche, like beyond just thinking positive. And, I think a lot of, what they teach in the health coaching is great, about the nutrition and then also positive thinking and those things. But if you really want to transform someone's habits around health and just how they habitually stress out, you have to go deeper. When I was a hypnotherapist, I was trained in medical hypnotherapy. And what I realized, I've worked with hundreds of people on smoking and weight loss. And what I realized is that it had nothing to do with nicotine. It had nothing to do with that they need the cigarette. They were actually addicted to it being a way to reduce stress, and they couldn't be with themselves in some way, some like shape or form. From that first cigarette, it served as a way to numb or either get them back into a relaxed state. Actually, it's taking that deep breath, getting outside the office, smoking with your buddies, feeling that collective. It's more of a psychological addiction than actually something to do with I'm craving nicotine. Food, the same thing. Every person I worked with on weight loss had nothing to do with what they were eating. It had to do with how they're dealing with their emotions and their stress, and also socially, that pressure to be perfect actually creates the opposite, the shadow. So there's so much more deeper work you can help someone with Jungian coaching, because you can you can have the basics of, eat right, don't eat sugar, eat natural food. But what is going on in the mind? Why are they continuing the pattern and the habit of causing problems in their life?
That's right. And then if we understand the principle of consciousness, that you essentially play out the patterns of your past conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to see those patterns in the way you relate to health, in the way you relate to the world. The ability to uncover the unconscious mind, like Jung says, will essentially now, it kind of resets your mind body.
Mm-hmm.
So where you're able to now make conscious decisions about what kind of relationship you're going to have with food,
Mm-hmm.
with the world, with others, with money, with everything essentially. But in the mind body wellness, it resets you in the way that now you can start over,
Mm-hmm.
instead of playing out the patterns from the past.
Yeah, it is amazing, because I've worked with not only weight loss and smoking, but I worked with women who were able to change their perception, because pain actually in the body, a lot of people, that's very common. People go to health coaches because they have chronic pain. It's very, very prevalent in especially women. There's autoimmune diseases. I think it's all because we're living in such a stressful time, and we're not given permission to talk about our stress, and we're not even a lot of times aware of what we're suppressing. And I've seen time and time again, working with women on having babies without pain, which is kind of not using medication, not needing anesthesia, surgery, using the mind to change the perception of healing, how fast the healing process happens in the body. My father was had a chemo, he had leukemia, and they told him he had a 20% chance to survive. And I know that my work with him of visualization and helping him believe that he can go through this, because he said, they only gave me a 20% chance. And my father was always like a very strong person. He would never show his weakness. And I said, well, that's better than 0%. And he was like, well, you're right. And so I talked to him and I showed him like what I knew. And he was so open for anything. And he went into remission. He didn't have any side effects from the chemo. And the doctors were saying it's a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's the mind is that powerful. And he pulled through, and he went into remission for 18 months. And at 70 to have leukemia, they said it was, a miracle that he lasted that long. Usually people don't last very long. Another example of just the power of the mind is that one of my friends, when I first got out of hypnotherapy school, she said, I really want to ask for prayers because my mother had this septic shock. I didn't know anything about it. I'm not a medical professional, but I knew that she was in a coma. And I said, just give me a list of everything that needs to happen in her body, what the doctors say, for her to get back to health. And she gave me an email with a list. I recorded a meditation for her based on what I just learned. I said, I just learned this in school. I don't know. She said, we're willing to try anything, because they were bringing healers in for her last rites. I mean, she was a young woman. She was only in her 40s, early 50s. And I gave her a little CD at the time and mailed it, FedExed it to the Santa Fe hospital. And they played it over and over for 24 hours. And in 24 hours, she rose from her coma, and her body all started healing, all just talking to the body, saying, you're getting better. Your body's fighting off the infection. You're important to life. And the most important thing, it wasn't just symptoms. It was all about tapping into her desire to live, and the love and the people around her, and bringing up the grandchildren and the children, and they all want you to be healthy, and they love you, and you're important. And I believe that is very important too. In health, if we don't feel loved, we're going to be a very sick person. We're going to have sick person. We're going to have physically sick. It's going to make us physically sick if we're lonely, especially this time right now. A lot of people are isolated. So we need to feel love. We need to feel connection. That's very important for health.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's another key point, is that we don't want to look at wellness and health in isolation, because it is part of the whole system. We know people that are happy, people that are in relationships, people that are feeling like they're doing meaningful work. They tend to live longer and to be healthier because of those factors. Modern medicine a lot of times approaches it as, well, if you're not feeling illness, or if there's, if you're not sick, there's no need for you to make any changes.
Yeah. If you're in this normal realm of, not obese, or, maybe you have a little high blood pressure, a little high cholesterol, it's fine. You're like in the medium, the mean, the medium, like average of the mean. But we know most people are so, like not healthy. So the mean of healthy is kind of we move the goalposts basically of what it means to be a healthy person. In the US, was it 2/3 of Americans are obese?
Something like that.
It's only a third of us are actually healthy. So then imagine now how the medical community is looking at what's normal, is like that goalpost is moving, and but it's not reality. I mean, the physical body has its limits. It's not based on the collective population.
Yeah, I would say that let's say this kind of coaching, this Mindbody Jungian coaching, it's more a preventative model than, let's say, after the fact. Now, of course, it would help after the fact, after somebody has developed diabetes or some kind of eating disorder or something like that. But it's essentially designed to address the connection between your mind body before you get sick.
Yes.
So that you can, let's say, prevent a lot of those problems. But you're right. The statistics are horrendous. We're seeing children getting diabetes because of the eating habits and the food industry and all this.
And we believe the key in what we train our coaches in is the part I think that's most impactful on health is the emotional wisdom work. So many of our clients have gone through the process working with our techniques on emotions that they've lost weight, they've feel more energized, they feel more confident, and a lot of their symptoms of long-term illnesses that they've had go away. It's just because stress is such a big part of it. And stress is really the misperception of who you are. Basically, stress is caused by the ego. Thinking you're the ego and not a spiritual being. So stress is that you're in that survival mode. So imagine being a coach, being able to get people just out of stress, to release the stress in their bodies, help them have a more connection to
Mm.
their deeper self, and how to work with these emotions that basically we have access to, that, just by being a human being and having to experience guilt and shame and anger and fear, all those things. How do we work with them without putting positive emotions in one camp and negative emotions in another, which actually creates more stress, because then we're like, we can't be sad and we have to be happy all the time, and we have to push away how we really feel. And a lot of our clients tell us that when they reclaim those emotions, they start to lose weight, because a lot of eating is a result of, I got to stuff my feelings. I got to cope with my emotions. Eating is a great way, snacking, or even just working out incessantly to avoid sitting with yourself and just being relaxed.
Yeah, that's another point that the model, the new paradigm of the mind body brings in, is that even though we have a body, we're not the body.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we have a mind, we're not the mind either.
Mm-hmm.
The Upanishads teach that we are the higher self.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the higher self is beyond the influence of the external world.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be touched by it. So in the sheath model, we only got to the third one. There's two more. Beyond the mind, and we practice this through meta consciousness, we start to get into what's called the wisdom mind.
Mm.
That wisdom mind is the one that is able to really think through things without being caught up in the emotions, in the conditioned patterns of things. Then beyond that is the bliss body. And the bliss body is really what gives us that restorative energy. So if you notice, when you don't get a good night's sleep, you're not as energetic as you are when you have that deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
When we go into deep sleep naturally, we're touching that essence in us.
Mm.
The blissful body is the restorative energy that reanimates everything.
And that's so important. And I have to tell you, there's so many people that suffer from insomnia as well. As a hypnotherapist, I worked a lot with insomnia. But it really, again, when I was a hypnotherapist, it was like a lot of symptoms I was working with. And I wasn't working with the deeper concepts that we teach in our Jungian coaching, which is, it's great to use those techniques, but understanding even that deeper layer is that you're really working with higher consciousness here. And that we need that restorative sleep so we can connect with our deeper self.
That's
and
right.
If we don't, we're feeling that increases stress, doesn't it?
Absolutely. What it does, it depletes the body of the pranic energy, which then puts everything at risk, because now your physical body doesn't have the proper energy to do its functions, its normal functions. Now, luckily, you don't have to go to sleep to touch that blissful body or to gain its benefits.
Although sleep is still good.
It's the best. But the whole idea of meditation was designed for that.
And so as a mind-body coach can help someone get to those deeper aspects. But here, I guess, what I want to ask you is that a person who hasn't done individuation and is trying to get to that deeper self, they may be bypassing to get to the goodies versus actually going through their shadow to get to this higher realm.
That's
like
right.
It's almost like it's a projection versus a real embodiment.
Well, let's say when we don't individuate, when we don't do our shadow work, we're still operating under the materialistic paradigm because we're still externalizing. We're thinking I'm dealing with a physical world
Mm-hmm.
instead of the consciousness one, right? It's like yesterday we were talking about money or success, and how if you believe success comes from the outside, you're always at a disadvantage because you're dependent on external forces that from the materialistic perspective you have no power over.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand that the mind is the cause, then you can work with it, right? You can work with your internal mind. So here in this model of the mind body wellness, it's the same principle. If you're operating under the materialistic paradigm, you're thinking, I have no control over, how much sleep I get,
Mm-hmm.
or what kind of cravings I have. In essence, you're playing out your conditioned patterns. In order to go beyond that, you need to do your shadow work to understand that, oh, I am the self. I am this consciousness that is able to direct then the external.
And when we say shadow, it's like all the things that we're rejecting or repressing that are in the way of us having that full expression of health and wellness. And if we just say affirmations and visualize our body healthy and, you're just kind of covering up the shadow. You're not really getting at what is the real core. And when you go to what is it that's holding me back in the shadow, that's really where you're going to see the big change happen. Otherwise, you're just kind of making surface changes and your mind is still, attached to the ego and thinking that that's who you are, that persona, trying to make it shinier. And we want to go to the root, and the shadow is unconscious. We can't see it. We have to go in and find out what's in there.
Yeah, and the way the emotions play into all this is interesting, because we can think of the shadow as the accumulation of all the emotional assumptions we've made from past experiences. And if we're not able to access those emotions and work with them, they drive the patterns. They drive the kind of our thoughts and our assumptions about who we are and what the world is. When we're able to access the emotions and work with them, then we can make decisions from that the higher mind, the true self. Yeah.
So what we do with our Jungian coaching is really help people on that deeper level get to the root of what is holding me back from being fully vital in my body, having health, feeling good, feeling calm, not as stressed, being able to manage the world in a way, like the things of the world. A lot of people want to create something in their life. When you think about this question is, what do you want to change in your life? And is that desire for change causing you stress? For me, it was constantly, when am I going to meet someone? When am I going to be successful? When is everything going to play out for me? And if we have that desire and it turns into stress, we know there's something that we're not aware of that's driving it. It's not coming from a divine desire. There's something inside of us that's stopping us.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a different approach to the mind body. The key is that we're not the mind, we're not the body, but our purpose is to take care of it. Like somebody said, if you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live?
Yes, I love that.
The body is the way we interface with the world, the way we experience it. Well, it's really the way the self experiences the world. Jung himself saw when he traveled to Africa. He says he looked out over the savannah and saw these hundreds of thousands of animals, zebras and giraffes and buffalo grazing on these plains, but they were not aware the way a human being is aware. They live out their lives kind of in nature, right? They're part of the whole system and they're not aware that they're aware. Whereas a human being
We're self-aware.
We're self-aware. We have that self-reflection.
Mhm.
And he says, that is when I understood the purpose of human life, is that we're meant to witness the creation, you know.
And we're not just meant to survive, just to be healthy. And, we should really, because like you said, our body is the carrier of our life if we don't have a healthy body. And plus, if we're stressed all the time, we want to feel the emotions of life. What's meaningful to us is through emotion.
Mhm.
We don't feel like our life is complete. The things we want them because we want to feel a certain way. It's not, I want a relationship so these things look okay out there. It's like, no, there's a feeling attached to it. I want to feel connected. I want to feel love. I want to feel successful. I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel proud of myself. I want to feel love for myself. It's all about emotion. And if we're not okay with our body emotionally, we're never going to enjoy life. We can have all the riches in the world. We can have the best looking partner in the world. But if we're worried that they're going to cheat on us or leave us, or if we're a good enough for them, it's going to be a constant stress. And that's not enjoyable. Life is about that joy. And I love the what you said about the deeper self, that wisdom mind, and then the bliss body.
Mhm.
It really is about that pure joy that we really want to get at. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow in the talk about spirituality. But yeah, like mind body isn't just about losing weight and looking hot and getting rid of disease. It's about, how do I live fully in my body and enjoy life in its richness, in the dark and the light and all that, and feel like life was a ride versus a very constructed, simple guardrail of, I made it, I survived it. We want to really just live a full, emotionally alive life.
Yes. And it's a whole discipline.
Mhm.
It's a whole way of approaching the mind body, where you start to see that your your wellness doesn't end where your skin ends.
Mm.
It is your environment
Mhm.
that we have to take care of the world if we
Mhm.
want to be well and healthy. It's not just saying, well, I'm just going to try to eat good things. Where are those things coming from? What kind of earth is it coming from? What kind of ecosystem
Mm.
is the food coming from? Because those things are an extension of us. We have to take care of our environment, of our planet, if we want to stay well. And like I say, I mean, I was trained as a child psychologist. If the children are becoming not optimally well,
Mm.
that's a big sign that we need to take care of the environment a little bit better.
Mm. Yeah, there's chemicals in food now, and our clothing and material. Like, how many things have we sent back? Uh, Furniture we bought that just had that off gassing, and paint. Really, it's a toxic world right now, and
Yeah.
I think that having being health is so important. It's overlooked, and it's one of the biggest crises I think we're facing, and we need coaches that are going to be able to understand it, not only not on just a material place. We want to empower coaches to take their desire for wonderful success and as a coach, but also change the way people
Mhm.
live in their bodies. And that's all life is. It's like right here in the body. Everywhere you go, you take your body with you. And we get so caught up in our thinking and our cognitive assessments and our stories that we forget and we reject all the emotions that are happening. And I think people are numb. A lot of times when I would ask someone, where do you feel that emotion in your body? They'll be like, oh, it's up here. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not in your head. It's in your body. Feel it. And then they're like, oh, wait, I feel this pressure in my chest or this feeling in my gut. Our body is embodying our emotional life, and our emotional life is going to dictate our joy and happiness. And that's truly what we want to achieve in life, not only just health, but joy. And that's what
Yeah.
wellness is. It's not just physical wellness, it's mental wellness.
Absolutely. And spiritual connectedness, which we'll talk about tomorrow.
Yes. So let's get to some questions before we go. If you have a question, post it here in the group. Here. Okay. I've been experiencing eating disorders and self-sabotage when it comes to my weight and body. I did some deep work. And I think that my reason is because I don't want to be attractive, because if I'm attractive, then I would have justification for not being with someone. Can you share some of your thoughts on how to better improve my relationship with food and my body? Yes. Well, the relationship with food is not about food. And I've worked with so many people on weight loss, and the number one reason why they kept the weight on is not because they just didn't want to be with someone, but because they feared the emotional connection. The physical body, if it's big or repulsive to people and not attractive, or even there's men that love bigger women. So it's not about that, but it's that person that believes that if I'm a heavier, no one will look at me. It could be a great excuse. But the real fear is nothing to do with, I have to be thin for someone to love me, but more, I'm afraid of being close to someone. I'm afraid of opening up. And, a lot of people will say, oh, maybe it's sex, you're afraid of, but it's really not. I think that's another symptom of it. You can be afraid of intimacy and being naked with someone, ashamed of your body, all that stuff. But I think the main thing is that, what will happen to my deeper self. Like I'm going to let someone in my life, and we build a wall around ourselves. A lot of people have survived early on by being ignored and not getting attention. So when they were younger, if they got attention, it meant negative attention. So there actually has been research done that people that are overweight aren't as noticed. People don't give them attention, and socially as someone who's thin. So it's more about attention and all that. And so we think, well, I just got to go on that crash diet again, and I have to change my relation with food. But we have to take it from the material approach to more the psychological and spiritual approach, which is, who am I? Am I the ego that needs to protect myself? Or am I the true self, which has never been harmed, never been hurt, never will be heartbroken, can experience heartbreak, but my true self can never be broken. So it really is more of a spiritual and psychological journey.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, that it begins with moving towards those triggers right there.
Yeah, because intellectually you can understand, I know why I do this, but now the work is how do I get to change it?
Yeah, the patterns, the triggers, they give us a way into the unconscious. So move towards that understanding, but understand that there's something beneath that. In other words, there's something beneath the pattern, and it's an emotion. It's an emotional assumption. And once you start that process of revealing what is in the unconscious, you start to free yourself from that pattern.
Okay, here's another question. I know you spoke about it, but can you expand in this paradigm, how we can help people with sleep problems?
Oh yeah. It's essentially the same idea that the sleep problem is not, let's say, it's not the problem.
Yeah.
The natural pattern of sleep is being disturbed by something in the mind. And once you get at that, then you can start to free your client from that pattern. Now, what exactly that is, it's individual. It depends. It's more like an interpretation that the individual has made about the world, about themselves, that is hidden from them. That's the whole thing about the shadow. That's why it's unconscious. because you can't see it.
So do you think people don't want to sleep because they're afraid of releasing that control?
It could be part of that.
Not wanting to go like, having dreams or, kind of getting into that dream state where the unconscious can work itself out?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There could be so many causes.
Everyone's different. So we can't say that this is how everyone who's having trouble sleeping, this is how you would work with it.
Right. But the idea of meditation being able to take you to that level of restorative, blissful body, that's an incredible idea, because that means you don't necessarily have to just wait to sleep or to go into deep sleep to be restored. You can meditate or learn to meditate to reach that level. And some people say, well, isn't that difficult? But the body knows how to do it. If it does it automatically every 24 hours, that means it's a natural mechanism. It cannot be that hard. It is basically looking inward and retraining your mind to go there.
And I think what happens is that we get in a habit of worry too. We get a habit of stress. And so a lot of people, they're on all day. And then all of a sudden they hit the bed and then their mind starts thinking. And that's the only time they stop to think. And then they start spinning and worried about everything. And then they're up. And then they get in, if this happens on a consistent basis, they get out of the habit of relaxing in bed, and they get their mind actually associates laying in bed to worry. And then they start obsessing over their life. And this is where I obsess over my life. And so kinesthetically, our mind and body, they connect. So the body is feeling something or experiencing an environment, and then the mind reacts to that environment after a while. So after a while, the bed equals laying in bed triggers the worry response. And so I think the best thing for someone is, what are you worried about? Get to the root, work with the emotion around it. And that's what's really going to help them. That's what the shadow work really helps with. Because until you get to the root, you can do sleep practices and relaxation before bed, but it's not going to help. A meditation during a awake state, learning how to meditate, will also help the person kind of get in a habit of going to that place while they're awake as well. So there's no barrier. They kind of get used to. The mind is very trainable.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we train it the way we don't want versus the way we want.
Yeah, that's a good key idea, that when we understand the principles of the mind, then we're using those principles for our advantage instead of letting them kind of control us.
Okay, next question. Oh, someone said it's sad to see some celebrities with frozen faces because they're so attached to beauty. What is the best way of aging in a healthy way? I think it's just loving every age you have, like not rejecting because we think of our face as our persona. And so that's really where we see the aging the most. Like, people don't look at the body more; they just look at the wrinkles, and to just love that. For me, I'm going to be 56 this week, and I look at myself in the mirror, and it's like, where did that 20-year-old go? But I learned to love those wrinkles and love, those aging parts of myself, and you just kind of. This is who I am now. This is the body that I'm living through now. And I love every part of it. And I think the more we can love that about ourselves, it gives other people permission too. We're in LA, come on. There's a lot of plastic surgery here, I'm sure. It's just that there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing it to psychologically make yourself feel confident, it's never going to be enough. And it'll be an addiction as well. And I think a lot of celebrities, it's really sad because you see them on videos and movies from when they were younger, and you're like, wow. And now look at her now. And of course you're going to judge it. Like, she's not that young girl anymore, or that beautiful beauty. Now she's older. It's like we do it ourselves. So we have to also look at people that are famous and ourselves change the way we're perceiving them as well.
Yeah.
and the people around us, right?
Yeah, it's difficult for actors that depend on their looks for their profession,
Mm.
um, and that create, let's say, keeping up that persona that people know them for.
Mhm.
They're almost expected to look the same all the time.
Yeah. Carrie Fisher, who's passed, she's a wonderful, funny woman. She said that when I was 23 and I was in that golden bikini in Star Wars, I didn't know I signed a contract that you always have to look like that. And so what happened to her is she got, she had a lot of issues with her family and stuff, but she was an alcoholic, drug addict. She gained a lot of weight and everyone was like, oh, look at Carrie Fisher. She's so overweight. Like she's not that little 23-year-old anymore. No one looks like they did when they were 23, but there's some kind of like collective idea that we have that we project onto celebrities. This is kind of like they're like gods to us in a way. There's these celebrities and they're supposed to be forever, the way we remember them.
Yeah.
And it's sad, like these gossip magazines and stuff, they're all like, look at her now, can you believe what she looks like now? And it's like, this is society. I think if more of us just love aging and love and respect our elders, I think we can live in a world that's different and we get to create the world we want to be in.
Great questions.
How do you change? Trying to find my mouse here. It disappeared.
How do you change sleeping pattern?
Oh, here it is. How do you change sleeping pattern? I'd like to sleep earlier. However, my sleep always goes back to the same very late night. The consequence is I do not feel as refreshed the next day. What does that say about my mind? And why is it so hard to change it? Well, very simply, stop saying it's hard. Stop telling yourself it's hard. This is hard. Just like with health, and it's hard to lose weight. It's hard to do something. You got to watch your language around. And even I don't feel refreshed. Just saying that to yourself every day, it's like an affirmation. So what you want to do is you want to first, get to the root of why you're not sleeping. How do you we do get into a rhythm with our body. So we do have to follow that. So find a rhythm that works for you and not judge yourself, not try to force it. Maybe do something gradually. Like if it's very late night, maybe you could start going a bit like a little bit earlier and then kind of build back versus making these extreme changes. And then also watching your language around your perception of your ability to sleep. Because a lot of people will say, oh, I can't sleep at night. And then it just it's like saying, I'm never going to make any money or I'm never going to meet someone. You use the language of every day of I'm sleeping restfully every night. It's easy for me to sleep. I feel energized when I wake up in the morning. If you start even just changing that dialogue, you're going to probably see it. I mean, that's a simple solution, but that would be one of them.
Don't you have some meditations for
Yes,
sleep?
she has my sleep meditation, I believe. So if you don't, let me know. But I have a great sleep meditation that just gets you right into it.
Yeah. You can condition your body to relax and fall asleep.
Yes, but remember, watch your language and it's hard. Watch your language. No, it's just like when we speak it, it's hard. It's going to be hard.
What we speak becomes the house we live in.
Yes, love that. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Any last thoughts, Rob, before we go?
No, look forward to tomorrow to bringing it home.
Bring it home.
Talk about the spiritual part of all this, because it is a spiritual psychology that we base the work on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a religion.
Mm-hmm.
We always emphasize that we base our work on Vedantic philosophy, not religion. But of course, the philosophy is talking about spiritual practices, and we'll talk more about that.
Yes, and we have early bonuses if you decide to do our coach training, which starts in September. By Friday the 14th, which is my birthday, if you put your deposit down $500, you will get some bonuses. We're having special extra sessions with us. You will get a choice of either a course or our new retreat that we're doing in October, the Mind and Soul of Success, that's coming October 3rd and 4th. It's a virtual retreat right here on this kind of platform. It's actually a paid retreat, so it's not going to be open to the public unless you join and buy a ticket. And you get that as a bonus. So if you're interested, there's a button here, Coach Training Info. Click on it, look at our information, sign up for a call with me, and we could talk about the program and see if it is a good fit for you. That's all we want. There's no pressure. And if it isn't a fit, I'll direct you to some other program that we have to help you get the results you want, whether it's to have more love, have more success, have better health, or spiritual connection, or all of the above. That's what we're all about.
I'll take all of the above.
All right, everyone. Thank you for my happy birthday. It's my birthday month. So take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day and stay healthy and happy.
See you tomorrow.
Take care.